The Bucks wrapped up a road trip with back-to-back losses in Miami with a number of players not playing, including Giannis. He had a couple of nights off. So we're going to discuss what happened on the weekend. We're also going to talk about Serge Ibaka. Is he coming back to the Bucks? It's all up in the air a little bit right now. And Khris Middleton appears to be nearing a return. Do we have any predictions for when he's going to come back and play for the Bucks? Another afternoon game against the Indiana Pacers tomorrow as well. So there's plenty to get through to start the week. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Bucks. My name's Kane Pittman. You can see and hear me on this show Monday to Friday, and also find my work over at ESPN. And alongside me from the Bucks Radio Network, it's Justin Garcia. And in the usual, I would say still the usual Sunday night time slot with Justin. We're both, I guess, finished watching some football. Everyone knows I'm not a big NFL fan, but it's playoff time, so I jumped on board. But we're going to be talking about the Bucks today, and we thank everyone for making Locked On Bucks your first listen or first watch of every single day. Subscribing on YouTube. The subscribers are going up. We're pumped about it. Join in the conversation. Hit the bell. Turn notifications on and get involved. Today's podcast is brought to you by Prize Picks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com. Promo code Locked On. Justin, started the road trip 2-0. I wouldn't say it was the most convincing 2-0 of all time, but the way the Bucks have been playing, you take it and you're banking every win. No Giannis in the back-to-back games in Miami, but hopefully he got a little bit of sun at least and some revitalization from the weather down in Florida. But these two games were very uninspiring. Did you take anything away from this? It's tough when Giannis doesn't play. I'm always kind of sitting back and saying, well, this ultimately doesn't mean a whole lot. But another back-to-back loss situation for the Bucks, and they continue overall, just purely based on the record, to be pretty mediocre since that 9-0 start.
Yeah, I took away they're just not fun to watch right now. The first two games I thought were pretty nice wins overall. I mean, you kind of alluded to it. It wasn't as if they blew out the Knicks and they started to blow out the Hawks and didn't hold on to it. But that string of 5 quarters of the final 2 quarters in New York and the first 3 in the Hawks game, where you were starting to feel really good of like, okay, maybe this team is kind of coming back into form. And it was kind of what we saw happen right before the All-Star break 2 years ago when they won a championship, that you thought, okay, maybe this is it. That's bringing them together. And then Miami happened. And night one, you knew weird things always happen in Miami. And when you saw what both teams were rolling out there, you're like, okay, I don't have high expectations for this game. But that second game was, I think, a huge letdown. When you look at what I just said, if this team was trying to seem like they were piecing together some things, and everything that we had touched on a lot on the radio broadcast has been what you and Frank have talked about too. I mean, their turnovers have been off the charts in a bad way, really all season, but especially in late December when that road trip started carrying over into this year, turnovers have been brutal. They did a pretty good job in the second half against the Knicks and all throughout the rest of this trip. So you're like, all right, they're building something here. And points in the paint and rebounding have all of a sudden become issues for this team lately as well. And those were 2 things that improved. And then all of a sudden it all went to hell in Miami. And Saturday was more frustrating because all those things you were improving just regressed. And you had guys back on the floor too, where you thought, okay, now we have, more offensive pieces out there. Grayson Allen's out there. Joe Ingles is back. So on paper, this should be a better team, and they should have some more offensive punch. And the game on Saturday, they looked even worse than they did when they were shorthanded on Thursday.
So the last 15 games, so they're 7-8 over their last 15, 29th in offense. Only the Houston Rockets have been worse, which is concerning to say the least. That turnover percentage you referenced, 27th for the Bucks. There's a number of indicators. The offense has been bad all season long, but it's been next level over this stretch for the Bucks here. And now they get the Pacers. And this is, I believe, it's a 1:30 tip. Justin, can you help me out? 1:30 p.m. tip on a Monday, MLK Day, I believe it is. And We do know who's not going to be. We're not sure if Giannis is going to be there, Justin. He's listed as probable with left knee soreness.
We're frankly not sure about any of those guys. Yeah, because we've seen guys listed as probable and then inexplicably out in a span of hours.
And Drew Holiday and Bobby Portis also probable. So the fact that they're actually listed on the injury report is concerning. And you got Serge Ibaka, Joe Ingles, and Khris Middleton out. So Joe Ingles, I'm not sure that's just the travel stuff into a afternoon game. Perhaps there's some sort of protocols they're following there. But Khris Middleton still out. We're going to get to Serge Ibaka a little bit later in the show. I know there's been a lot of conversation around Serge, but let's go with Khris. We got as far as injury reports go for Khris Middleton, a somewhat positive report from Bud when he said he's been doing not just 5-on-5, significant 5-on-5 work. So what's your sense here?
Well, we were talking before, and so I guess let's go back a week where I don't recall if you and Frank or you and Camille talked about this, but the Shams Charania report that came out last week of Khris getting very, very close to a return. And he had said specifically, I forget what show this was on, but he had said specifically he was hearing he might be back for that Thursday game in Miami. And it was one of those things where when you started to see it and listen to this report, you're like, all right, this makes sense up until the Miami game, when anybody that's been around this team knows, yeah, there's going to be guys that are clearly not going to play in that Miami game. So why would the Bucks bring Khris Middleton back when, as we saw Thursday, nobody else was playing? So that just kind of didn't make sense. But there has been these nuggets along the way where, we keep hearing there's no updates to make, and he is making progress. The whole thing of him doing more 5-on-5s and them sending the herd out to Miami to work with not just Khris, but a handful of other guys and get them more of that run. I mean, that's as close as we get to a telltale sign of it's usually within a week or so whenever things like that happen that the guy is getting ready to return. So I know either Eric or Jim asked Bud about this before the game, I think Saturday. And I don't remember if they referenced it specifically in their question or if Bud did, but the fact that you essentially have a week at home where you can get more practice in, you can use the herd more, and you're just using that facility at the Sports Science Center however you choose, because the Bucks came home Saturday night. They're not going to leave until they leave for Cleveland on Friday afternoon. So I kind of take that to mean if I had to choose when he's back, I think it makes sense that he would be back for Saturday against the Cavaliers, that we just continue to hear he's close. He's been doing 5-on-5s and working with the herd and assigned to the herd. And the fact that you had a full week off in your own city now leading into that game leads me to believe there's a really good chance Saturday is when he's finally back.
That would be very exciting. It's been a long, long time. I got some more Khris Middleton stuff. I want to continue this conversation. Then we're going to get to Serge Ibaka after we talk about Prize Picks, our sponsor of today's show. And if you're not sure how Prize Picks works, it's pretty simple. You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. There's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. And it's not just NBA. They've got NFL with the postseason still rolling on, baseball when it returns, NHL, golf, college sports, everything else. So you can jump in, and it's safe and fast for withdrawals and currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. And if you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. You deposit 50, they'll give you 50. Don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. So continuing the Khris Middleton conversation. So we all understand that he's only played these 7 games. I remember at the start of January, or when we were just turning into the new year, and I said, look, I'm giving it till the end of Jan before I start to panic about this team. We're sneakily starting to get there. But the interesting thing is that it's already been a month since he last played again. He's had another month off with this knee soreness. His last game, quite depressingly, was the 41-point disaster in Memphis, where he may have had the worst game of his entire career. He was just not good in that game. And then we haven't seen him back since then. And
that was the game, too, I believe, where he left with an ankle issue, right?
I think that's. I mean, look, I've tried to wipe that game from my memory, Justin.
Well, yeah.
But it just all this is to
Which
say.
my larger point is it just leads to the ambiguity of the whole thing, and especially a year after Brooke Lopez, where we haven't seen him for a month now, and it's been kind of stop and start all along this season with him. But that was the game too, where I'm pretty sure he left with an ankle injury that none of us spotted of when did this ankle injury occur on the floor, and then a couple of days later it's back to knee soreness and he's on the injury report.
And there's been a lot of things going on, and I don't bring it up too much, but people understand. They talk about it on the broadcast. Obviously, had the family tragedy as well. So, if it was me, I'm sure motivation would have been a little bit low there, and people say, well, you're professional. But there's been other things going on as well. So we're not really sure exactly where he's been at. But what happens is when you don't get these updates, and we've seen it before, the rumors start.
Make their own updates, and they're always the worst possible scenario.
The rumors start, and we understand Khris Middleton has a player option for next season. My thoughts on this the whole time, and this is not to say that this is just, I haven't seen any reporting to say this is true, but my thoughts the whole time, and I mentioned it on this podcast a few months ago, is that I think Khris needs to play and play well. And if he plays and plays well, he'll earn himself a significant deal, whether it's in Milwaukee or elsewhere. I'm not sure that sitting out would even be beneficial to earning a lot of money. I might be wrong, but that's not something that comes to mind for me.
No, I've seen this take too, and it just floors me because he's getting paid either way, and he's going to have a market either way. But how would he improve his stock by not playing? And again, somebody's going to pay him. Hopefully, it's the Bucks, but somebody's going to pay him. But if he is choosing to, you know what, I'm not playing until I'm fully ready, and I'm going to torpedo this season. And at this point, he's going to miss more than half the season because it's already 34 games, 36 maybe that he's missed. And I mean, even if he comes back Saturday as we targeted, he's not going to play every single game for the remainder of the season. So we're going to get to the point where he may only play in 30 games this season. That's not going to improve his free agency stock. I don't think it's going to drop it drastically, but if he was choosing to do this, which for the record, I don't think he is, it's not like he's going to be improving his standing in free agency in the summer. So I've never understood that take.
I tend to agree. We'll see. Again, there's been just a little rumblings of the unhappiness or frustration with the Bucks locker room. And I know people have mentioned Bill Simmons, and he's brought it up a couple of times. I've heard Zach Lowe be with Bill, and both times Zach said, the only thing that I've found is that there's just frustration that the team isn't healthy, frustration that they're not winning games, which makes perfect sense. And I think, if you've got Giannis leading this team, we know he's as competitive as anyone. So surely there's going to be some frustration. As I said, they're 18 and 16 since that 9-0 start. So they've been battling for quite a while here. Another player that's fascinating, though, is Serge Ibaka. So he has been away from the team for personal reasons for a while now. We don't understand what those personal reasons are. And there could be anything going on. I'm not going to speculate about what those personal reasons are, but we can talk more broadly about his role with this team. So Eric Name did ask Bud on the weekend about Serge Ibaka, and Mike Budenholzer said he does not expect Serge Ibaka to join the team when they get home to Milwaukee. There was also an article a few weeks ago now. I think it was French. It had to be translated. I did translate it, and yeah, it seemed, and sometimes the translations can get mixed up, but it seemed like he was potentially not thrilled with his role on this Milwaukee Bucks team. And if you look at his play so far this season, he's appeared in 16 games, only 11.6 minutes per game. And really, a lot of those minutes have come when the games are well and truly over as well. But I think I mentioned this a few weeks ago when the first rumblings came out about potential unhappiness from certain players on the roster. I said, well, I can only point to guys that potentially are frustrated about their role, that to me at least, it was very obvious what the role was going to be coming into the season. So if I'm talking about Serge Ibaka, and again, we don't know whether he is angry about it, but if he was, I would say, I don't know what you expected.
So, yeah, I agree. I think we were all kind of surprised that Serge Ibaka came back because we assumed the way he was used last year that it was basically, we're confident that Brooke Lopez is coming back, and we've said this all along, but just in case, we should probably find a security blanket here. And it didn't work out too great last year with Serge. So I think we were all very surprised when he chose to come back, and seeing how he's been used this year. It's very similar to how guys like Wesley Matthews and George Hill have been used too. Now, the difference there is I think we would all say, well, George Hill and Wesley Matthews are more apt to get a lot more playing time in the postseason than Serge Ibaka is. That even still, it's going to have to be an injury that's leading to Serge Ibaka. So I'm with you where it's, well, if you're upset, I don't really know what you thought the opportunities were going to be here. And I guess it boils down to the conversations that he had with John Horst and the rest of the front office of what was the role that was indicated to you here. But yeah, I think the big thing is we don't know what the personal issues are, what the personal reasons for him missing time is. So it's easy, again, to jump to conclusions and to interpret that interview that he did and say, well, look, he's clearly taking shots at the coaching staff and he's not happy. And the fact that when Bud was asked by Eric on Saturday, is Serge going to be back with the team? And his answer was no. When you return home, no. That doesn't mean Serge Ibaka is disgruntled and upset and he's just choosing to be away from the team, or they've decided it's best for us, to part ways or you to stay away from us. We don't know what the personal reasons are for his absence. So on the one hand, if he is upset, which we're already jumping to conclusions, you could kind of piece together, I mean, he hasn't played a whole lot, but as we said, where do you think the playing time is going to come from with this group, with Bobby Portis and Brook Lopez and Giannis?
Yeah, first and foremost, hopefully everything's okay. But if it is just purely basketball related, I think this was pretty predictable, even though maybe there was some uncertainty about how Brook Lopez would look. And to this point, he's looked fantastic. But then you got Giannis, then you got Bobby. And it's not like there's anyone else really that's been taking the minutes, but those three guys are locked in the rotation. That's not going to change. So it'll be interesting to see how this pans out. And of course, when we talk about Serge Ibaka, we have to mention the trade because the fans are still very angry about the trade. So I had to go back and have a look at what the trade was. And clearly Donte DiVincenzo going out, we all remember he's playing pretty well for the Golden State Warriors. He's in a pretty good situation there. I thought it was pretty predictable that he would have a good season there. And I liked Donte DiVincenzo when he was here, but I don't think that he was thrilled with his role here in Milwaukee either. And the Bucks extended Grayson Allen, and that's another part of the conversation here. But I'll still go back and say that, yes, now in hindsight, the trade, you probably wish it didn't happen. But at the time, no one had a clue what Brook Lopez was going to be like.
Yeah, in hindsight, it wasn't great. You got a couple second rounders, didn't you?
Seconds, yep.
Couple second rounders, which we've seen John Horst do a lot with second round picks the last couple of years. We're in agreement that I don't think Donte was going to be here either way. That I think it was kind of the die was cast when the Bucks extended Grayson Allen, and Donte was looking for different opportunities. So you don't fault him for that. But the one thing you would point to, it's the same as conversation we had the last couple of years and 2 summers ago specifically. Even if Donte didn't want to stay here, you still had an asset that if you didn't make that trade, number one, Donte would have been very playable in that series against the Boston Celtics, especially with no Khris. And two, I mean, it's all about retaining assets, and you would have had that asset to move for something else in exchange and not something that's Serge Ibaka at the trade deadline.
Well, we're halfway through. Well, we're more than halfway through this podcast, but we are more than halfway through the NBA regular season as well. So fatigue can start to set in. Maybe you're a little bit hungry. You're looking for a tasty snack, and Built Bar can absolutely help you out, because if you're looking for a delicious treat but don't want all of the fat and calories, then you got to try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays, and people have different goals. You might be looking to lose some weight or just eat a little bit healthier. I'm always trying to eat a little bit healthier, and that's why I go with Built, where healthy is actually tasty. What makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate, and they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond as well. And you don't have to go to Built.com to get your boxes delivered anymore. You can just go to Walmart or Sam's Club and pick them up straight away. No waiting for delivery. You got it there. Have one on the way home, and then have one when you get home. You'll love it. So if you're close to a Sam's Club or Walmart, run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter and churro, and you can thank me later for that. Or also go to Built.com. All right, little random Bucks trivia here for you, Justin, that I just thought of as I was scrolling through the Basketball Reference page. So we understand the health stuff that the Bucks have gone through this season. We also remember the old Javon Carter, George Hill debates that was raging through the offseason and into the start of this season. Can you name me the top 5 players by minutes for the Milwaukee Bucks this year?
For the Bucks. Oh man. Well, Bobby Portis would have to be up there.
Yes. Third.
So, all right. Grayson Allen.
5th.
Okay. Brooke Lopez.
1st, and he has played 100 minutes more than the second-ranked player, which is astounding.
I would assume Giannis and Drew are still in the top 5.
Giannis number 2, and Drew Holiday isn't there because Javon Carter is there. The Bucks have 6 players that have played over 1,000 minutes. Drew Holiday is the 6th player there. So Javon Carter, 1,077 minutes already this season. George Hill down at 613, and we know he hasn't been playing much at all lately there. But it is just interesting. I think I pointed this out before, but Javon Carter has never played more than 945 minutes in a season. He's already up at 1,077, so they're only halfway through the season. So again, I don't know what it looks like in the playoffs, particularly with the offensive stuff. But if there was any desire from Bucks fans to see Javon Carter play, you've seen a hell of a lot of Javon Carter so far this season.
We have. And look, I'm going to continue to advocate for this. We talked about it very, very early in the season, and I've talked about it on some of my shows on the radio. I would very much be in favor of them going back to Javon Carter in the starting lineup. I think it just works better to have him and Drew Holiday back there. I think it takes a little bit off of Drew defensively, where he's got another guy to play out there on the perimeter with him. And I like the concept of Grayson Allen. I know you want to maximize his minutes with Giannis, but I just like the concept of he and Bobby being guys that are coming off the bench to score. And it seems like Javon, not that he's not engaged, but it seems like he's more engaged and his offense is better when he's playing with that first unit.
So is Grayson Allen here in a month?
Well, yeah, that would be past it, huh? Because it's February 9th?
Don't try and get me with a loophole. I know what date it is.
You know what? I'm going to plead the 5th on that one.
Okay, that's fair enough. I'm very interested. That's all I got to say. And as I said, it's already January 16. Probably as most people, it's January 16 right now in Australia, but January 16, as most people will be listening to this over in the US as well. Trade deadline on February 9. So it is just going to really start to creep up. If we look at the NBA standings overall, and we've been monitoring this for a while, the Celtics have pushed away. They've now won 6 straight. So they're 4 games clear at the top. To me, they're almost a lock to finish in the number 1 seed in the East. You can hand it to them now. Then there is 1 game separating the Nets, Bucks, 76ers, and Cavs. And if we look at the schedule coming up, we know the Bucks have got the Pacers. They're around a 500 team. But it's challenging. They have to go back to they'll host the Toronto Raptors, then they go to Cleveland. And Pistons should beat them. But then you got the Nuggets, the Pacers, the Pelicans, and then those pesky Hornets, who the Bucks would owe them as well. So I've been saying this for a while, but there is a real danger if the Bucks can't get this together in the next couple of weeks here, that they're going to be sitting in 5th and unthinkably outside of a home court seed.
Yes, but as you just pointed to, it's, we're not going to see Kevin Durant. I know they've been pretty vague. He's going to be out a month, you would assume. And at that point, it's going to be close to the All-Star break. That what's the point in rushing him back? Why not just take it through the All-Star break? So I'm still not sold. We won't see him until the second half of the season. And, the Bucks, as everybody kind of fretted over their schedule of, well, the Celtics are going to start to run away with it and they could drop down to 4th or so here. Yeah, we have seen Boston bounce back, but the Bucks have just a ton of games. And I know we talked about all the struggles they've been going through recently, but the door is open now the schedule between now and basically the All-Star break, you only have, I think, 4 opponents between now and then that are in the top 4 spots in their respective conferences. So it's a lot of those teams like 5th or 6th and in the play-in tournament or worst, and mostly Eastern Conference teams. So if you can get healthy and just start to eliminate some of those mistakes, the door is pretty open for the Bucks to go on a similar type of run as the Celtics have in the last couple of weeks here.
Well, to do that, they will certainly have to boost what they've been putting out there offensively over the last 15 games. That continues to be the big area of growth for this team. Make sure you listen to the Game to Game podcast on your Locked On NBA feed. All the local experts from around the league will give you recaps of every game after it happens. So if you didn't get to catch up with the NBA the night before, you can listen to that podcast and you'll be filled in. And maybe you'll find another Locked On podcast you want to listen to after. Of course, you're done with Locked On Bucks. We have to be your first listen, which we appreciate. To wrap this up, as I said, I've been watching some NFL. How much joy did you take from the Vikings losing? Because my Twitter feed was lit up with some very happy campers.
I took quite a bit, and I was telling you, during the season too, I wasn't quite as in on the Packers as I have been in seasons past, just because of the Bucs schedule. But a part of you was like, and I hear it from Vikings and Bears fans all the time when the Packers lose. We saw it the final game of the season when they were celebrating that the Packers didn't make the postseason. I don't want to be that fan. Like, I'm not gonna dance on the Vikings gravestone here and celebrate if they lose. But as soon as that game ended, I just felt this happiness that I haven't experienced in quite some time.
That's a tough break. Tough break for the Vikings. Didn't watch them all season, but when you win all those close games and then lose a close one in the postseason, it's going to be a tough pill to swallow. But anyway, hopefully the Bucks will get back on the winners list. They got the Pacers tomorrow, 1:30 p.m. As I said, another early start for me, 6:30 a.m. Not ideal, but we'll push through. We'll have a post-game podcast after the show. I'll drag Frank on at some point in time. He must have the day off work, so surely he can podcast, and we'll be back, as I said, for the post-game show. Justin, I'm sure you'll be working, so afternoon shift. You prepared?
I suppose I better be. Yeah, a 1:30 start, so it's gonna be weird trying to go through my mind and figure out the timings of what time do I need to be there and what time will Bud talk, and so that'll be an adjustment for a couple hours tomorrow probably.
Well, you enjoy that. Everyone else enjoy the game, and we will be back for more Locked On Bucks after, hopefully, a Bucks win.